Yes, I made a big decision. I gave it all to Christ. I just had to get it right. He means so much to me. Now I know why he's testing me.
Welcome to the He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not podcast with Barbara Pettis, founder and CEO of Better Place Ministries. Barbara's passion for this cause is driven by her own personal experiences with domestic abuse in both her childhood and as an adult. She is committed to helping others achieve their goals of excellence and has devoted numerous hours to educate and empower individuals that are affected by domestic violence. Her enthusiasm for this cause is infectious, and it represents her personal zeal in life. And now, here's your host, Barbara Pettis.
All right, welcome to another episode of He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not. You guys know that with technology, anything can go wrong. But we are here now and we are ready to roll. So before I get started, I have a little housekeeping to take care of. This podcast is made possible by the philanthropic endeavors of Victoria Grace Media. Thank you so much, Victoria Grace Media. Want to congratulate local artist Tracy Satterwhite. He was the winner of last week's gift. And each month, you guys, we will be blessing someone with a gift each month. And all you have to do is share this podcast, this live stream, share it on Facebook with 3 to 5 people. Start even now, and we will keep a tally of whoever shares the most, and you will be the recipient of a gift. We will be giving gifts away every single month, every month. So I don't know about you guys, but I like free stuff. So share this podcast on your live stream, on your Facebook pages to 3 to 5 people. And I want you to follow us on Twitter at B Pettis Ministry. That's the Twitter at B Pettis Ministry. Like our Facebook page, Better Place Ministry, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Better Place Ministries. Then I want you to go to my website, www.bpministries.org. And while you're there, go ahead and purchase your book, From Pain to Purpose. This is my book that was released on last November, From Pain to Purpose. It is my journey through abuse and addiction. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And then I want you to become a monthly donor. The funds that we will be gathering or collecting will go to helping a victim of domestic violence, keep her safe until a bed opens up in case we have to put her up in a hotel or something if all the beds are full at different shelters. So please become a monthly donor. You never know. You could be saving someone's life. All right, asking you to help us help them. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My guest today is Deborah Mitchell Eby, and I hope I'm saying that part of your name right, Deborah. I know I can mess up some names. But Deborah.
It's Eby.
Eby. Okay, see, I knew I was saying it wrong. Deborah Mitchell Eby is LCSW. She has over 25 years of experience working in the human services field and 20 plus years of experience in working with families impacted by domestic violence. Deborah has had various roles at TFP, from counselor to developing. TFP, for you guys, that's the family place. From counselor to developing programs that focus on outreach to undeserved communities impacted by domestic violence. Her current title is Senior Director of Staff Development and E-Learning. Deborah has a BBA from Texas A&M Commerce and a MSN from the University of Texas at Arlington. Deborah, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. I am so excited. I'm so grateful that you could take the time out, and I am so excited to hear all the information that you're going to share with our listeners today. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right on into it. So, Deborah, I know that children who witness or are victims of emotional, physical, or sexual abuse are at higher risk for health problems as adults, such as mental health conditions, depression, and anxiety. They may also include, I believe, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, poor self-esteem, and other problems. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because the stress of growing up in chaos does a number on your body and on your mind. So when these kids are little, from the time they're infants, if you're growing up with the stress that's caused by physical, verbal, emotional abuse, it has an impact on them long term.
Okay. Okay, so I was on the right track. And is it true that children and youth who are exposed to domestic violence can lose the ability to feel empathy for others?
Well, I think that's empathy is something that if you lose it, you can gain it back. But often what we're talking about is going back to what you said about the impact of stress. The impact of stress in kids, especially newborns, has an impact on your brain development. So one of the little short things that when we say about the brain, we have the thinking brain, and then we have the brain that tells us danger, danger, danger. So if your brain is stuck in danger, 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 because you never know what's going to happen when you get home from school. You never know what's going to happen when someone wakes you up in the middle of the night because of arguing and fighting and so forth. That changes your perspective on life. So they might have less chance of empathy, but empathy is something that they can regain by the work that a parent, a cousin, anyone can do with them.
Okay. All right. What about, and Teresa and I touched on this a little bit last week. What about bullying? Is that bullying behavior that some of them take to school, is that a symptom, if you will, of domestic violence that they see in their homes?
Bullying behavior can be the symptom of domestic violence or other things that's going on in the home. One of the things that I always say is your home is your first schoolhouse. So when you and I were growing up, Barbara, what did we learn in our first schoolhouse? So if what you learn in your first schoolhouse is, okay, in order for me to get my needs met, I have to cuss, scream, and hit somebody, and I'm in that learning stage, then what am I going to learn?
Absolutely.
To hit, scream, and do all those things that we don't like for them to do. But they are observing that in their first schoolhouse, their home.
Wow. Wow. And I want to tell you guys, those of you that are watching Facebook Live, as we are going through, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat feature, because we're going to try to address some of the questions that may come across today. All right. So, Deborah, what are some typical short-term responses? What are some typical short-term responses?
Responses from whom?
From the children, that maybe what are some responses that maybe a teacher or outside person looking in, seeing this behavior and knowing maybe what's happening in the home?
Okay. I think that oftentimes when we look at behavior, we can start at infants who have attachment issues, who are constantly crying. Yes, there might be other medical issues wrong with them, but we also need to pay attention to them and their interaction with their parents, with their caregiver, for what is going on with them. I remember when I had a 4-year-old that I was counseling, and he was not very verbal, but he was constantly getting in trouble in the classroom, running outside the classroom. So that runaway behavior can sometimes be that something's going on in the home. With teenagers, when we look at teenagers, one of the things that I've heard kids say is that in the afternoon that they started acting up because they knew that they had to go home. And so they did not know how to deal with the stress and the tension that they knew that was going to be at home. So they started acting up because one of the things that we really don't work with kids well on is for them to identify their feelings and us helping them to work through their feelings. We often will tell a child, oh, you're too young to feel that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But when they start acting up in school, the bullying behavior that you talked about, or it might be the total opposite. Sometimes kids are just really passive. But all of that says that something might be wrong in the home, or there might be other issues that we need to address with the children.
So is it the responsibility of the teacher or the principal or even in church, a pastor, is it the responsibility for them to alert a authority to find out, maybe you want to do a wellness check. Maybe you want to check into this household because of certain behaviors. Is that a responsibility that they would have?
I think you have two different issues. One is if you think a child is being hurt, then we all as adults have a responsibility to report that to authorities. The other part of it is that if you see a child and you know something is wrong with that child, we all have a part in helping that child develop resilience and to help that child to overcome what's happening to them. Because I always give the example of is when you go to school, most people can remember who their favorite teacher was and why that person was their favorite teacher. Because they make you feel smart. They made you feel that you can learn anything. So we all have a part in building that self-esteem and that resilience up in children.
So what are some intervention strategies then?
Well, one of the basic is just acknowledging that child. One of the things, I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about building the empathy skill that you talked about. And sometimes building empathy in ourselves so that we can connect with other people is just acknowledging something good in someone without any qualifiers to it. Oh, that was good you did that. Or that was great that this happened. Find something legitimate that you can compliment that child on or compliment another person on for us all to build our empathy skills and be that example. So that's one, is just complimenting children. Because I often hear a child say that I felt that everything I did was wrong. And we know from research that we more likely pick up on and remember all the bad things people say about us than the good. Yes. So let's all go through our day and say 10 good things for people to every one thing that we say, or sometimes just keep those words to ourselves. So another one is when we think about children, and I know this is a tough one for parents, is we need to recognize the behavior consequences of perpetrators of domestic violence. Yes. Those are our children, and we need to recognize what their behavior is doing to their family, whether that perpetrator is a man or a woman. And so we need to hold them accountable for what's happening in the family. That it's not okay to come home and yell and scream and beat up people on the weekend or through the week. That's not okay. And that they need to get help for that. So that's something we can do to help our children, is to hold the batterer accountable. Find out what kids are interested in. Help them find their strengths and what they're interested in. They might not be the best baseball player, but it might be something they enjoy. Find out what they like. So those are just some basic things that we can do when we think about building resilience and helping kids feel good about themselves.
Okay. I know when I was a kid, my mom was my first abuser. And so I had suicidal thoughts. As a matter of fact, I attempted to take my life twice. Do you find that in your counseling, in children that you have seen, is that something that comes up, or are there signs that people can look for, the parent or whatever can look for? Because I like I said, my mom was my first abuser, and I had suicidal thoughts quite often, and praise God, it didn't work. When I attempted it twice in my life, praise God, it didn't work, but that was a factor.
Well, I think, again, Barbara, is two things. One is that we need to recognize that all parents are not good parents. And when we are on the outside observing this, that there are things that we need to do to help kids be safe. And on the other side, when we look at suicide and look at the statistics on suicide, African American kids lead the way with suicide. So when we notice, or your senses just sense something is wrong, that the behavior is off, what they're saying is off, then you need to ask somebody. Because oftentimes people who are suicidal say, no one ever asked me. Educate ourselves on those issues that affect our children, but we might not know. Because I feel, Barbara, that oftentimes in the African American community, we'll say, "Well, we don't talk about those things," and I say, it's okay not to talk about those things that don't impact you. But a good counseling term that happens to those things that do impact us is called DENIAL, denial. So it's one thing if that doesn't impact you. Nobody in my family that I can see, observe, hear about is beating up each other. We're all good. But when you know that you're in denial, that your son, that your daughter is beating up on his partner, that the kids are being impacted about that, it's not about, we don't talk about that in the African American community. We're in denial on the impact of it.
Yes, yes. And you said something that I did not know. I did not know that our community had the highest risk of suicide in our children. I did not know that. I did not know that. Wow. And
we need to educate ourselves on those issues and how to help, and not just say, "Oh, that doesn't happen to us." Oh, it is happening. It is happening. Get out of denial. Get out of denial that is not impacting. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And another thing that Teresa and I talked about, and I'm sure you probably heard this old saying too: "What goes on in this house stays in this house," and that presents trauma for a child. That presents trauma because they're afraid to tell somebody what's happening in the home.
Well, again, Barbara, if what goes on in the house stayed in the house, then we wouldn't have kids to go to school and act up.
Well,
we wouldn't have kids in the juvenile system. We wouldn't have kids who are committing suicide and doing self-harm. We wouldn't have kids that are bullying each other.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
that is, again, is DENIAL,
Yes.
denial.
Yes.
Because we have those kids who cannot concentrate in class because they're worrying about if their mom is safe. They can't concentrate because they're just so. When you talk about trauma is felt in the body.
Yes.
And they're feeling it in their body. And as adults, we have to be accountable and hold others accountable and figure out how we can help our children and our community.
That's right. And another thing for us, we don't believe in counseling. It's like a taboo conversation, or we don't believe in it. But we need counseling. The first thing that I hear a lot of people say, "Well, I'm not crazy." What are you talking about? You don't. What do you mean you're not crazy? You're trying to get help. And so I feel like that a lot of children need to be in counseling because we're talking about children, but it spills over into our adult lives as well.
Right.
What
I say again, Barbara, is if the behavior is not a problem. It's not a problem at work. It's not a problem in your family relationship. It doesn't keep you up all night thinking about it. Doesn't make you go over there and hurt somebody. Doesn't make people not want to be around you. Then you know what? That's okay. You got it under control. But when things are out of our control, you're snapping at people. Your kids are having problems. One of the signs too with kids is bedwetting. There might have something physically wrong with them. But again, a lot of things we hold in our body, bedwetting, when all those things are happening and we try things, we might need to try something else and get out of DENIAL because denial will kill us. And when we look at the city of Dallas statistics on domestic violence, who is denial killing? is killing African American women at a greater rate than anyone. And thus it impacts their children.
Yes.
Because when the parent is gone, what's going to happen?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely. I know for me, I was an angry kid. Man, I would fight you if you just looked at me. I would fight all the time. You pass by me wrong, and I'm gonna punch you. And that was, I guess, my way of acting out. And so I get what you're saying, and I love the fact that you keep saying denial, because a lot of us are in denial about what's happening in our homes, about what's happening with our children. I feel like that on the news that we hear about these 16 and 17, 13-year-olds walking around here with guns, shooting people and doing all these crimes. Again, it's denial, as you're saying.
And one of the things that, again, I give credit to the webinar I was listening to today, and it talked about kids hitting and acting out. And it said that sometimes when you grow up in craziness, that what you're really doing is you're pulling on your survival instincts, because you grew up with the craziness, with the hitting and hurting. That in order for me to survive, I have to be able to take care of myself. And taking care of myself at that stage means I need to hit somebody before they hit me.
Yes.
Because if not, I've learned what happens when people hit you. And so we have to reframe it, but we still need to get people help for it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely correct. I don't know. Every time I cut the news on and I see these 11, 12, 13-year-old kids that are out here committing the crimes. And my first thought is, where are the parents? What are the parents doing? What's going on in the home for these kids to be out here doing the things that they're doing? And we need to address it. We need to do something about it. It's one thing to talk about it, but then it's time to put action behind the words.
Exactly. And I think it's time for us as adults to be responsible. As you say, if the parent is out of the picture, what about the cousins? What about the uncles? What about the cousins? And we used to have that type of nuclear family that everybody was involved with you. But now it's like, oh, they grown. They can go out there and do what they want to do. They're 16. You're helping them make decisions that are going to impact them the rest of their life. That felony stunts their growth. Let's look at it and help our children succeed.
Yes.
Because you know what? I have a 19-year-old. I tell him all the time that one day he's going to look back and say, oh, I'm glad that somebody added me structure. And his one day came not too long ago. He had a friend. I said, one of the things that kids do, they sell tennis shoes. And I didn't realize that was a big business, kids selling tennis shoes. And we live in Rowlett, and he has a friend that lived in Garland, and they were meeting these other high school kids that they had met on Snapchat or one of those little social media things that they thought they knew because they were high school kids, and those are my friends. I'm like, oh, okay, your friend is somebody you know more than an hour or two. But anyway, they went in Garland to sell tennis shoes, and do you know what happened, Barbara? The people that my son was driving, because his friend didn't have a car, They little teenagers got in the car with them. My son had to get out of the car for something. Got out of the car, looked back. They had pulled a gun on his friend in the back seat over some tennis shoes. Tennis shoes. A gun on them. And we thank God that nothing happened to him physically, but emotionally something happened to him. And we have to think about that. Yes. What are we telling kids if they're, as you said earlier, that they're killing and hurting each other over tennis shoes, pulling guns? We need to look at what we are teaching in our first schoolhouse. Yes. What's going on in the schoolhouse of home? We need to close those doors and do some homeschooling in the schoolhouse of home.
Come on now. Absolutely. I feel like, that the parents now are busy trying to be the friend and not the parent. You're trying to do whatever you want to do. I got my own life and this kind of stuff. And these kids are running rampant, and they are seeing them cursing and fighting and bringing this person and that person in the home. And these children are confused. They're angry. First of all, they're angry because I was a very angry individual. So they're angry, they're confused, and they feel like don't nobody care. I can do whatever I want to. Mom is doing her own thing 9 times out of 10. Dad may not be in the picture. And it's just a sad situation to me, Deborah.
Well, I think that the layer that has been added is the layer of social media. And social media, unfortunately, gives kids access to the world. Because another piece that we talk about when we talk about chaos in the home and the intersection with domestic violence is that, again, a sad statistic that African-American girls are the number one victims of sex trafficking. It's not somebody that they're importing in, African-American girls, because of the chaos that's happening in the home. So we need to think about, again, what are the messages that we are giving? What are we teaching our children? Because social media, cell phone, you can say, tell a child now, okay, I'm gonna send you to your room. I can give the honest example of my son. I'm gonna send you to your room. They got what in their room? They got Xbox that connected to the internet that they're playing games with people all over the world on.
Yes.
They got TV, they got their cell phone, they got Snapchat, they don't use Facebook anymore, Twitter, all of that. They don't have to leave their room. They don't have to leave it.
Right.
So we have to think about what are the layers that we want to do, make sure that we are educating our children. Because one of my chief things is you're not going to be able to say that I didn't tell you about.
That's right.
Because often parents will say, well, they ain't going to listen to me, so I ain't going to say that to them. No, you need to say it to them. You need to say it.
That's right. That's right.
Give them guidance.
That's right. And I agree with you. I think that every time you look around, a kid has their cell phone and that's their face is buried in that cell phone. When I was growing up, we went outside and played. We walked and we played baseball and things outside. These kids now are in the house on their cell phones, on some social media, like you said. And I think that the parent needs to take control and put a time limit on it. Exactly. All day long, your face is buried in social media. I feel like I heard on the news this morning, a young girl was kidnapped from somebody that she met online. So there again comes in, tell your daughter in your home that she's loved. Show her that she's loved. Exactly. Show her that she's worthy, because when she hears it from somebody on social media, they run away thinking, oh, he loves me, not even knowing anything about this individual. I don't know. I really don't know.
And you raise a great point, because, again, I go back to the extended family, too. Talk to people about relationships. Talk to them about domestic violence. Walk in the footsteps of what you will and will not accept in a relationship with them. Be that role model, whether you're a man or a woman. Take that step and be that role model. But talk with them about relationships. Talk with them about their friends. Because when I was growing up, we had to go through a whole litany of stuff about who your friend, where they live, who their parents. And I lived in a small town. Do we still ask our kids those things?
Right.
But the bigger one is, how are they finding out about relationships? Are they finding out relationships from their friends? Because we know what a teenage brain, how that is.
Yes.
Give them information on relationships.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so grateful. I didn't want to overlook the fact that your son was in that situation. So I'm so grateful that nothing happened. And I know that he has a mom that's going to give it to him straight. So
emotionally,
yeah.
The emotional, and that's with domestic violence oftentimes too. We we downplay the emotional impact And the
Yes.
emotional impact are the scars and the words that we take around with us for the rest of our life. So
Yes,
I
indeed.
talk with him and I sometimes joke with him about it, but just to remind him that I care about him and that was difficult for that to happen to him because he's a big kid. Excuse me. But that was difficult. So we have to remember because a pet peeve I have is in the paper when you read about a domestic violence incident where there were kids, and unfortunately when there's a homicide and the kids were there and they witnessed it, they will say, and the kids were not harmed. And I'm like, yes, they were.
Yes.
They're going to take those emotional pictures around with them for the rest of their life.
Yes.
And when they start acting out or feeling depressed or feeling all those emotions, no one is going to tie it back to what happened to them. Because people are going to say, oh, that was 10 years ago. I told them to get over that. You carry that around with you. Think about how many things that we carry around with us, the good and the bad from our childhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That irritates me as well when I hear that the kids were
Mhm.
not harmed. They were
Yeah,
harmed
like
immediately when they saw their mom get shot
exactly.
or stabbed.
Harmed
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
Now they don't have any parents. They carry that image around with them. So all of that, it has an impact on them.
All right. So listen, if you know some children, there she is. If you know a family that is going through something, that's going through domestic violence, children, if you're around children and their behavior is sporadic, their behavior is odd, behavior is different, let's start asking questions, man. I mean, get involved. Start asking
Well,
questions and pay attention.
well, I think that the first part is really finding out about that child and not about the incident unless you notice them with bruises and so forth. Have a conversation with them about what they like. What is your favorite course in school? Do you like school? What do you like the color green? Find out what they like. Have conversations with them so they can feel that somebody cares and I can talk to this person.
Yes.
The next step after you find out what's going, talk with them and trying to get their trust. And I really, one of the things I say to people, don't get information from a child or from anyone in a family to go gossip about it with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have it legitimately in your heart to help that child, pass them on to the next person, because you're going to do more harm than good in that family by taking information and gossiping. Gossiping means, and let me define it for you, because you're not going to define it as gossip. Most people don't. It's when you pass that information on among a circle of people that you know are not going to help, are not there to help. So be cognizant of that. Don't just gather information to gather it. But again, first have a conversation with the child to see what they like, what their favorite school, what their favorite food is, and so forth. And it also just depends on your relationship with the parents. Because if that's your brother or if that's your sister, what is your relationship with them? You've been with them most of the time, all of your life. What do you know about them from observing them and talking with them? How are you going to approach this subject with them? If it's your, and the other side of it is, if it's your brother or your sister who is the abusive person, what do you say when that person slaps or hits their partner or their kids in front of you?
Yeah.
Because your behavior leads them to continue that behavior.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we need to hold those individuals, our brothers or our sister or whoever, accountable, accountable for their actions. And a lot of times we don't, and that's just who they are. No.
Exactly.
No,
That's just who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that to me is where it also, especially in the time of COVID has stressed us all out and made mental health issues more prevalent in a lot of ways. People need help for their mental health issues. They need to be on their medication sometimes, but medication alone cannot help them. they need to be in counseling, whether it's pastoral counseling, that somebody's really working with them on their behavior, or in traditional counseling. Medication helps to mellow you out so that you're able to then start dealing with your problem. Your problems do not go away because you're taking medication.
That's right.
So that's the other piece of it. Medication and people over medicating themselves or using alcohol, the problem is still there when you wake up the next morning with that hangover.
Hello,
now you got a
I'm a
hangover
witness.
and the problem. You know, you might need to talk with someone to help you to deal with the problem. And I think, Barbara, that the hardest thing for me or for anyone is to change. Because I say I've been trying to lose the same 20 pounds for 20 years. So, you know, I don't need another diet, and nobody tell me about another diet. We all know what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
But sometimes we need accountability partners and to make ourselves accountable in order for us to change. And because people can change.
Yes, I believe that. Shalonda, you are absolutely correct. Kids copy what they see. Yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do. You're absolutely correct in that.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, thank you so much, Deborah, for joining us. Again, this is another topic that could go on because it is real. It affects
your patience.
Yeah. It affects everybody. It affects everybody. And what happens in the home does not stay in the home. It does not stay in the home.
It does not stay in the home. And we all can make the difference in the life of a child. We all can say a good word to that child, compliment them on something, show them how to do something. So we all can be responsible for our children.
That's right. That's right. And listen, if you or someone you know is in a domestic violence situation, there is a national domestic violence hotline that you can call, 1-800-799-7233, 1-800-799-7223. If you're local and you need a place to go, the Family Place has a 24-hour crisis hotline. That number is 214-941-1991. Not only the Family Place, Genesis Women's Shelter. Their number 214-946-4357. One Safe Place in Tarrant County, 817-916-4323. Safe Haven of Tarrant County, 877-701-7233. Help is available. Help is out there. And I'm going to go back to asking you to become a donor for Better Place Ministries. Go on the website, www.bpministries.org. Become a monthly donor. Help us help them. Help us help them. All right. Once again, Deborah, thank you so much. It looks like you're sitting in your car and want you to get out of that car.
That's where I have internet.
Well, we hope that this show will bring about a change in a child's life, in an adult's life. Our ultimate goal, our goal is to see change. Be the change that you want somebody else to be. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have an amazing evening. If no one has told you today, I love you.
I just came to testify today to let you know that no matter where you are and no matter where you've been, that God can change you because He changed me. This is my testimony. There's been a change in me, a wonderful change in me. There's been a change in me, a marvelous change in me. Listen, I'm not perfect, I made mistakes, many regrets from some very dark days. But when I opened my heart to you, I felt